Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of the Roundabout Way of Fate. This will be part 21, the second half to chapter 14. Midoriya-kun? Midoriya-kun, are you listening to me? Recovery Girl's voice snaps him out of his stupor. Huh? He glances at his mentor and winces at her annoyed expression. Sorry, what did you say? She huffs through her nose. I know this is all exciting, but it's important to stay focused today. I know. He waves his hands. I'm sorry, He sighs and shakes his head to clear his thoughts. It won't happen again. Good. Recovery Girl nods. Well, I was saying that we're probably going to get flooded with kids after this first race. So let's do what we did when that stampede happened. Treat them with traditional means and send the worst ones over to me. What about my quirk? He asks. Isn't this a good opportunity to train? Yes, but I need you to save your energy for the battle tournament, she explains. Of course, don't tell anyone I told you this, but it's going to be a series of one-on-one battles. It's like a bracket system, you know. They fight and fight until one person comes out on top. Foolish and barbaric, if you ask me. She grumbles the last part, and Izuku snorts. Anyway, the winners of each match have to go on to fight another, but they're often injured from the previous fight. It's always been such a pain to figure out how to deal with them because my quirk will sap them of the strength they need for their battles. But now I have you. His mentor smiles and rubs her forehead. Oh, Midoriya-kun, you are a godsend right now. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with these idiot kids throwing themselves at each other all by myself anymore. Izuku knows just what to say to cheer her up. Nezu-san works you too hard. Yes, he does, she cries out, then huffs good-naturedly. All right, come on, you. Let's get to work. It soon becomes clear that the obstacle race is really between Todoroki and Kachchan, the two being leagues ahead of the other students. Izuku is surprised that Ida isn't doing as well as he thought he would, considering that it is a race. But the camera hardly focuses on the stragglers as Todoroki and Kachchan enter the minefield. He knows he needs to remain unbiased, neutral, as all healers should be. But he can't help the little leap of excitement his heart gives when he sees Kachchan start to overtake Todoroki. They push and pull at each other, trying to slow each other down. But when the rest of the students start to catch up, they break apart. Between Todoroki sliding on his ice and Kachchan propelling himself with his explosions, it's a tight race, but Todoroki ends up winning, by a hairbreadth. Izuku is mildly surprised, but he doesn't have much time to think about his undoubtedly pissed-off friend before students start coming into the infirmary with injuries. After that, he hardly has time to pay attention to the festival at all, too busy looking over patients and treating what he can alongside Recovery Girl. Thanks to Todoroki, most of the injuries involve frostbite. The boy didn't melt his ice like he did with Ojiro and Hagakure, so the prolonged exposure resulted in more damage this time. Fortunately, none of the students have had any dead tissue, so it's mostly just a process of rewarming the skin and bandaging it up in some cases. When he glances up at the screen again, the cavalry battle is occurring. Once again, everyone, including present Mike, realizes that it's really just a fight between Kachchan and Todoroki. Izuku briefly wonders how the blonde's wrists are doing. He's never seen him use his quirk so much before. A moment later, however, his attention is drawn back to his work. They make good time going through the numerous wounded students, but a decent handful have injuries aside from frostbite, and it takes him a moment to realize that some of the students coming in are upperclassmen. He knows that the second and third years of sports festivals happen at the same time, but he has no idea where they are. The first year's stage is massive. How could they fit two more into the stadium? He brushes it off as UA just being huge and focuses on his work. It's not particularly difficult, He doesn't come across anything that he's never dealt with before, but it's taxing, and he's been on his feet constantly since leaving the train this morning. By the time he's able to look at the screen again, the cavalry battle is almost over. He watches as Kachchan lunges towards Todoroki, who has barricaded his team in ice. The blonde snarls and grabs onto his left forearm, and this must be it. Todoroki is definitely going to use his fire now. Except he doesn't. Instead, he lets Kachchan yank his arm aside and grab one of his headbands, ripping it off as he flies by. Even through the screen, Izuku can see the burn that is left on Todoroki's arm when Kachchan lets go. Despite his efforts, however, it seems that the wrong headband was grabbed, because Todoroki remains in first place with over 10 million points. The crowd roars and cheers, but Izuku just winces. Kachchan has lost twice to Todoroki. No doubt his friend is furious. And he most certainly is. Thankfully, Izuku is the only one in the infirmary when Kachchan bursts in. There are surprisingly few injuries after the cavalry battle, and those that are wounded are seen to quickly. Recovery Girl steps out for a moment to restock their supply of bandages and gauze, telling Izuku to hold the fort before leaving. So Izuku is able to give his friend his full attention as he comes stomping into the infirmary, visibly seething. "That half-and-half motherfucker!" he hisses, his red pupils mere pinpricks. "That's the last time he'll make a fool out of me. I'm not gonna fuck around anymore." Unperturbed, Izuku simply asks, "Are you injured?" Kachchan grits his teeth and shoves his forearms towards him. "I would have blasted him out of the ring at the end there," he growls. "But my wrists were fucking killing me." "I suppose there wouldn't be any point in telling you to take it easy," Izuku sighs, gently placing his hands on his wrists and letting his energy flow. Recovery Girl hasn't told him to start using his quirk yet, but he assumes that it's okay since Kachchan is going to be fighting in the battle tournament. "But at least be careful." Now rejuvenated, Kachchan testingly rolls his wrists and bares his teeth in a grin. "I'm gonna wipe the floor with his ass." "Kachchan," Izuku huffs. Yeah, I'll be careful too." Kachchan rolls his eyes. "Come on, the lunch break just started. Let's go eat. I'm fucking starving." "Oh, Izuku glances around the empty infirmary. "I don't know if it would be such a good idea for me to leave." "What? You don't get a lunch break?" Kachchan scowls. "Don't act like you're not hungry. Doesn't your quirk work better if you're full?" "Let me just wait for Recovery Girl to get back," Izuku says. "She shouldn't take long, but why don't you go ahead and get in line for us? I'll join you soon." Kachchan looks like he might argue, but then his own stomach lets out an audible growl. "Fine." As soon as he's gone, Izuku flops down in the nearest chair with a heavy sigh. His feet ache, and even though he hasn't used his quirk that much yet, he feels like he could go for a nice long nap. He's about to close his eyes just to rest for a little bit when a knock on the door startles him. It can't be Recovery Girl. She would have just walked in. So it must be another injured student. Stifling a sigh, Izuku drags himself to his feet and opens the door. "Todoroki-kun!" Said boy seemed slightly surprised to see him. "I thought you'd be at lunch." Izuku shakes his head and steps aside to let him in. "Recovery Girl stepped out for a minute, so I was waiting for her to get back first." He trails off when his eyes land on the burn on Todoroki's left forearm. He grimaces. Man, Kachchan really doesn't know how to hold back. "Why would he?" Todoroki asks as Izuku leads him to sit on one of the beds. The greenette doesn't respond, instead looking over the boy for any other injuries. He has a few other burns from Kachchan that he must have gotten when they were scuffling during the obstacle race. Like with Uraraka, Todoroki's uniform has been seared into his skin in some places. Izuku makes a disgruntled noise and walks over to one of the drawers. I'll have to remove the burned cloth from your wounds before I can heal them, he says, grabbing some tweezers and scissors. But it shouldn't take too long. Todoroki nods but doesn't respond. Izuku quietly gets to work on the burn on his shoulder, the same shoulder that had been burned just about the same last week. Izuku presses his lips into a thin line. He doesn't really know what to think about all this. Everything involving Todoroki. There's too many confusing hints, too many questions that he doesn't have the answers to. But at the same time, he's afraid of what those answers might be. He glances at his burned arm. You know, he murmurs softly, if you had used your fire. I won't use my fire, Todoroki interrupts, not looking at him. Izuku hesitates. Then, it would have been to your advantage. I don't care. His voice is cold. I'll win without using my left side. He sounds so resolute, like he decided this a long time ago. It's confusing, and it only makes the hard ball in the pit of Izuku's stomach get even heavier. There's just something about the way that Todoroki speaks so meticulously devoid of any emotion, like he's trying to hide something, or protect himself. Still treading carefully, Izuku says, You don't seem to be very fond of fire. It's more of a comment than anything, an idle musing while he plucks bits of charred fabric out of the burn. Todoroki remains quiet. Izuku swallows. Does that have anything to do with Endeavor? A long, tense silence follows. Slowly, Todoroki's face turns towards him. Izuku keeps his eyes on the burn, but his hands aren't moving. He's too nervous to do anything but wait for the response, trying not to suffocate under the rising tension. Finally, Midoriya. I just notice things, you know? Izuku blurts out, completely interrupting him. It's just, I don't even know you that well, but whenever you've mentioned training with your father or not using your fire, you never seem happy about it, you know? Not that you have to be thrilled or anything. He's rambling now. But I just started thinking. I couldn't help but wonder, especially with your scar, and then when you came to me with that burn, I just... Midoriya. Todoroki tries to interject. I don't want to make assumptions, you know, but everything that I've seen from you kind of looks a certain way, and I can't help but worry. Midoriya. And I know it's absolutely none of my business anyway. Izuku waves his hands frantically. I'm totally being rude here, but He trails off, struggling to find his words. All he can think about is the burn that was on Todoroki's shoulder, how painful it looked, and how he lied. He lied. Izuku knows he did. But what can he do? The helpless feeling that he hates with a passion returns, frustration burning his throat. I'm a healer, Todoroki-kun, he whispers, head bowed. I want to help people. I want to save people, but I can't. All I can do is heal them after they've been hurt. He takes in a deep, shuddering breath and looks up at Todoroki with a weak smile. But I've always wanted to be a hero. I hate not being able to stop people from getting hurt. So please, Todoroki-kun, I don't know what's going on, but if there's anything I can do to help you... Todoroki stares at him for a few moments, eyes slightly widened. Then, he blinks and his face becomes impassive once more. There isn't. Izuku swallows and tries to stifle his disappointment. Oh, he whispers. Todoroki looks like he might say something else, but when he doesn't, Izuku wordlessly averts his gaze, turning his attention back to his injured shoulder. He dutifully picks the bits of fabric out of the burn ignoring the pair of mismatched eyes that stare at his face as he works. There are only a couple of other burns that need his attention, smaller ones that he cleans fairly quickly. Then he leans back and starts to take off his gloves. Todoroki's hand shoots out. He catches him by the wrist, just below his palm, carefully avoiding the bare skin below his glove. Izuku startles and looks up at Todoroki to see him staring at him. Todoroki-kun? The taller boy slowly slides off the bed, making the greenette take a step back as he stands in front of him. Izuku pales as Todoroki gazes down at him, something unreadable in his eyes. "I don't need you to save me," he says. Izuku blinks. Todoroki presses his lips in a thin line and tries again. "I mean, it's nothing I can't handle on my own, so don't worry about it." Unwittingly, Izuku's eyes flicker over to his shoulder, then back to his face. A soft sigh passes through Todoroki's nose. He seems to be considering something. Todoroki-kun. "I'm sure you know," the other boy says, "that Endeavor has been stuck as the number 2 hero forever. My old man has a strong desire to rise in the world. As a hero, he won a name for himself with crushing force. Because of that, the living legend All Might is a great eyesore to him. Since he couldn't surpass All Might, he moved on to his next plan. You've heard of quirk marriages, right?" Izuku is a bit taken aback by the turn of the conversation, but he doesn't want to risk saying anything that might make Todoroki stop. He has a feeling this is finally going to clear up everything he's been wondering about. Todoroki continues. "That thing became a problem for the 2nd and 3rd generation after superpowers appeared. Choosing a spouse based only on strengthening your own quirk and passing it on to your children. Forcing people into marriage." His eyes narrow. "The old-fashioned way of thinking is brought about by a lack of ethics. He is a man with both accomplishments and money. He won over my mother's relatives and got a hold of her quirk. He is trying to fulfill his own desire by raising me to be a hero to surpass All Might." Izuku's breath hitches. Todoroki isn't even looking at him anymore. Instead, he's scowling at the ground. "It's so annoying," he hisses through gritted teeth. "I won't become the tool of scum like that. In my memories, my mother is always crying. She told me my left side was unsightly as she poured boiling water on me." Izuku's eyes widen as Todoroki raises his hand to cover his scar. He feels like he can't breathe. That scar. He knew it wasn't from fire, but his own mother. Todoroki's voice brings him out of his thoughts. "I will reject him completely by winning first place without using my damn old man's quirk." His hand drops, and he fixes Izuku with a determined look. "So no, I do not need to be saved. I have a plan, and it will work." He looks so stubborn and resolute that Izuku almost believes him. "Todoroki-kun." The door slides open. "Sorry about the wait, Midoriya-kun," Recovery Girl chirps as she walks in, her arms full of bandages and gauze. Izuku takes a step back, and Todoroki lets go of his wrist, as if he didn't realize he was still holding on to it. "Oh, hello, Todoroki-kun," Recovery Girl notices the boy. "You've done very well so far. Is everything all right?" She directs the question to Izuku, frowning at the burns on Todoroki. Izuku straightens up, trying to collect his whirling mind. "Oh, yes. I just had to remove some pieces of cloth that were seared into his skin." He turns back to Todoroki, taking off his glove. I can heal it now." "Remember to focus on the flow," his mentor reminds him as he places his hand on the burn. He tries to concentrate, he really does, but Todoroki just dropped a huge bombshell on him. Endeavor is really that awful. The #2 hero. Izuku remembers a time before his quirk manifested when he was interested in the flame hero. He wanted someone to look up to in case he inherited his father's fire-breathing quirk, but even though he never seemed too friendly on the news or even during the recommendation exam, Izuku never would have thought. Endeavor is supposed to be a hero. How could he do something so horrible? Like before, Todoroki pulls away from his touch before he can heal his scar. "Thanks," he mutters, already turning away. Before he can leave, however, Recovery Girl calls out, "Oh, Todoroki-kun, why don't you take Midoriya-kun with you to lunch? You both need to eat well before the final event." Todoroki pauses at the door, and Izuku hastily trots after him, saying goodbye to his mentor as he leaves. They walk down the hallway in silence. Pretty much everyone is busy getting lunch, so it's mostly empty. Izuku casts a glance at Todoroki, but the taller boy isn't looking at him. There's still something that he didn't quite confirm, although, from the way he talked about Endeavor, it's fairly obvious. Despite Todoroki's odd attempt at reassurance, Izuku still feels a flare of protectiveness in his chest. If he tries to hurt you again." "He won't," Todoroki says. "He knows better than to leave a mark on me when I have school the next day." A pause, his lips pressed together. "Usually." Todoroki's words don't bring Izuku any ease. Instead, his stomach churns even more. He glances at Todoroki's healed forearm. Something tugs at his heart. They part ways during lunch. Kachchan has already gotten both of their meals when he meets him. The blonde loudly complains about how long he took to get there, but Izuku can't find it in himself to say much in response. Kachchan casts him a couple of odd, quizzical glances as they eat with their friends, no doubt noticing his lack of enthusiasm. Not wanting to worry his friend, Izuku plasters on a smile and forces himself to eat, despite the fact that he actually feels quite nauseous. There isn't much to do when he goes back to the infirmary, so he just idly watches the broadcast of the sports festival. Midnight announces what the final round of the competition will be, and Ojiro surprises everyone by withdrawing along with a boy from Class 1B. Izuku tries to pay attention, but all he can think about is what Todoroki told him. The ache in his chest grows bigger. What does he do now? One of his classmates is being abused by his father, a pro-hero. This is really serious. Should he tell an adult? He isn't sure if they'd believe him without proof, but he is a healer, or, at least, he's going to be. He wonders if doctor-patient confidentiality applies to this case, too. But if he did tell someone, Todoroki might not ever forgive him. He probably wouldn't have told Izuku his secret if he didn't have some level of trust in him. He doesn't want to betray that. It might even just make things worse. Endeavor is an immensely powerful man, not just physically, but socially too. If it came to a legal battle, there's no way he'd go down easy, and Todoroki would be the one having to deal with the repercussions. Swallowing past the hard lump in his throat, Izuku looks down at his lap. He needs to ease his mind somehow. He takes out his phone. "Hi." "Hello, young Midoriya. How are things on your end?" "Fine. Bit of a lull right now. Where are you?" "I'm at the 3rd-year stage in the teacher's booth. Why?" Izuku briefly wonders why All Might is watching the 3rd years instead of the 1st, but saves the question for later. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course." Izuku stares down at his phone. He starts typing a response, then almost immediately deletes it. How does he ask this? After a few more typed and deleted responses, he finally hits send. "Can I call you?" "Yes." "Can I go to the bathroom?" Recovery Girl glances up in surprise. "You don't have to ask me. she replies. But the recreational games are going to be over soon, so don't take too long. Izuku nods and tries not to rush out of the infirmary too quickly. Instead of heading towards the bathroom, he finds himself in an empty hallway and presses the call button. Young Midoriya. All Might's voice sounds a little breathless, as if he also hurried to find a quiet spot. Is everything all right? Are you okay? I'm fine. Izuku sighs, leaning against the wall. He winces. Actually, maybe not so much. Are you hurt? Where are you? I'll come. No, it's okay. I'm not hurt. He cuts himself off with a rough exhale, struggling to find his words as he pinches the bridge of his nose. All Might, what would you do if you knew someone was in trouble, but they didn't want your help? Young Midoriya. All Might sounds bewildered. If you know you shouldn't meddle because it's none of your business, and it might make things worse anyway. Izuku lets out a heavy sigh. But you can't just sit back and do nothing, you know? All Might is quiet for a long time. Izuku knows that he's probably confused the man, but he can't think of another way to ask. After a few beats of silence, All Might says, I think I would just do what my heart tells me is right. I've always believed that meddling when you don't need to is the essence of being a hero. Somehow, the words make Izuku's chest feel just a bit lighter. His mind is still in turmoil, but now, he knows he should do something. He has to do something. He doesn't know what yet, but the resolve is enough to steady him. Thanks, All Might. He smiles softly, even though the man can't see him. Are you sure you're okay? All Might asks. I'm assuming those questions weren't rhetorical. No, but you helped. He hears a particularly loud cheer come from outside. I think I should go now. Will I see you later? I don't know. I'll text you if I can't stop by. Okay. Bye. Izuku hangs up and walks back to the infirmary. All right, listeners, this concludes the second half to Chapter 14 of The Roundabout Way of Fate. Chapter 15 will be up next. A lot of reveals taking place in this chapter, and I love the fact that All Might is such a good mentor to Izuku in this fic, despite the fact that Izuku wasn't given one for all. I think that's really nice to see. A lot of times in fics where Izuku doesn't get one for all, he and All Might have maybe a poor relationship, or it's not quite the same, so really love when the authors can do something like this too. You know, as much as I love my All Might bashing fics, I also really love when All Might is protective, or he's a good mentor, or a support system in some way, or even a parental figure. So I'm really glad to see that the author had this kind of style for All Might taking place. I'd love to hear what you all thought about the reveal with Todoroki and how Izuku's handling some of this so far. Any thoughts or reactions you have to this chapter, just drop them in the comments below. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.